this is the notes for 3-4. So what we're doing is we're going to do a transaction or two, and then we're going to be at the end of the bottom of our journal. So we're going to prove and rule a journal, meaning at the bottom of the page, we're going to prove and rule it. We're going to have this thing called carried forward, which you put on the last line. Then you're going to make sure it equals before you carry it forward. That debits equal credits. We'll put it onto the second line. We'll put it on the second page. The top line we'll write brought forward. We'll do a couple more transactions, and then we will total the journal at the end of each month. When we do these things, we want them to, the debits and credits for the 5 columns in our journal to equal. And then we'll figure out proving cash, which is making sure our cash equals our checkbook, and then we'll talk about some errors. So that's what they're talking about here, prove and rule of journal, how to prove cash, and then make sure about the errors. So the last line on the journal page, we want to prove our columns, the 2 debit columns, general and cash, and the 3 credits, general, sales, and cash. These 3 credits, they need to equal. Debits need to equal credits, assets equals liabilities, owner's equity. Those are some standard phrases we use. All right, so in order to do that, we'll go down. They don't have a journal here, but we'll go down, add them all up, and if they equal, then we prove that that journal, hopefully, it's a check, it's a safeguard, is done correctly. Now, there's ways that it might not equal, it might equal and still be incorrect, but it's a good check. To prove the first page, it needs to verify total debits equal credits on the page. That's what we're looking at there. They talk about it in the steps. We won't worry about that. So we get down to the end. You're going to use the same date as the previous last transaction. So we get to the, this break is just showing you a break. They're just like there's a bunch of other transactions. We get down here where the second to last line, we're like, okay, we're at the end. We still have more to do. So this isn't totals. This is going to be carried forward. But in order to do that, we will do like what they did back here. We'll add up the columns, make sure we get the general debit, cash debit, get a number, general credit, sales credit, cash credit totals, and if they equal, then we will go ahead and write the same date as the last transaction, the words carried forward. If it allows us, we'll put a check mark here. This is for next chapters where we post, because we don't have to post anything. And we put our totals here only after they equal, okay? This is kind of obsolete, but we still have to do it. It's called ruling the journal. We don't use pen and paper anymore, so it doesn't really affect us, but it will be questions you'll see later. Ruling the journal, there's a line here, you can't really tell, but it's called single rule. It's like adding up something. So if you did 2 plus 3, you put a line. That line indicates we're adding things up. We write the carry forward on the same date, like I said, and then a double rule at the bottom. You see how this is double underlined, means that they have equaled. So single rule, line across, indicates that we're totaling these columns, adding them up, and then a double rule in the journal indicates the totals, the sums of debits and credits equal. That's all that means. So basically, the last line of the journal, you're going to write the same date. You're going to write carried forward. You're going to add up the totals of debits and credits equal. You'll put them there. We won't have to do single and double rule lines, but they will ask you questions on it that we're still writing. Excuse me. All right, so then when we bring home the totals from the last page, we're going to copy them down onto the next page. So this is page 2. The previous page is page 1. So you see 4,213. That's the same number as here. All these numbers are the same. We're just bringing them forward now. We carry them forward from page 1, and they're brought forward from page 2. This one is like, so how do you remember C before B, right? Carried forward before brought forward, whatever you want to remember it. You guys won't have to really worry about it too badly because you can use book and notes on the test. But hopefully C before B kind of helps you. We use the same date as the last transaction and the carried forward. We put a check mark again because we're not totaling or posting those. And they just talk about it right there. So it's pretty simple. What are we doing? We're adding up the page, making sure the debits equal credits. When we find they do, we put a line in here. We're not journalizing, we're putting totals, but it's called carried forward because we still have more transactions. Go to page 2, same date, brought forward, check mark again, same totals. At the end of the month, so we do this, all these different transactions, and we get to the end. It doesn't have to be the last line of the journal, it could be in the middle of the journal, but if it's the end of the month, we would write the date of the end of the month. January has 31 days, so we would put totals. And again, we would add up the totals. It says Delgado Proves and Rules Journal at the end of every month. Everybody does. Okay. Even if the journal page is not full, we will add up the journal. Again, debits have to equal credits. That's what's highlighted there. Okay. And when we decide that, then we put the numbers in. If for some reason, when you did carried forward, if they didn't work, if it didn't equal, debits didn't equal credits, then we have to find our mistake up here. We don't want to carry forward a mistake. So if it's debits don't equal credits, then we want to fix it before we do the brought forward and add them all up. We get the totals, debits must equal credits. We do that at the end of the month, regardless if it's at the end of the page or not. Now they have this thing called proving cash. Okay, when we want to figure out, this is what the form kind of looks like, its setup kind of looks like. We're just basically trying to, what they say, prove cash. We want to make sure the money we think we have in our account from our journalizing equals what the number is in the check stub. All right, and it's just basically seeing if the cash number equals each other. And it says determining the amount of cash agrees with the accounting records. So how do we do this? Usually our examples for this semester is we start out with 0 because it's a brand new company and we're doing the first month's transactions, trying to get used to them. So we usually have a 0 balance because it just started out. We add up all the money we made. So what would that be in a journal? My computer's locked up, sorry. What would that be in a journal? That would be our cash debit columns. Okay, good. So cash debit is all the money we made, 7,120, 7,120. $0 because we just started the company, so we didn't have any balance, plus the 7,120 cash debit. Sometimes they'll give it to you, sometimes they won't, but you should understand what cash debit is or beginning to understand it. So 0 plus 7,120 gets you 7,120. Then it says less total cash paid during the month. What is total cash paid during the month? Credit. Every time we wrote a check, it's a cash credit. So our cash credit's 4,523. So we subtract all the money we made, cash debit, from all the money we spent, and we get a number, cash balance at the end of the month. This number needs to equal checkbook balance in the next unused check stub. Usually that is given to us in our instructions. So it says verify that the cash balance we found equals the check stub balance in the next unused check stub. This number is usually given to us. Often we'll have this setup given to us. Other times we'll just have lines and they won't tell you cash on hand. You'll have to know the first line is cash on hand. Lucky for us, we have a page that shows you exactly how to do it. That is, you can use. We can use our book on the test, so you should be able to do this. The cash on hand plus cash debit, all the money we made, minus all the money we spent out, which is cash credit, gives us a number that needs to equal the checkbook balance that they usually give us. That's called proving cash. At the end, they go about these errors, and they talk about errors. Well, again, we're not writing these, so it's very similar like when we said single rule means we're adding up the column totals, double rule means they debits and credits equal. We don't really do that. The computer does all this stuff. But if the error is recorded, we want to cancel the error by drawing a line neatly through the item. Okay. If it's an error that we want to write a new line above, the line right above it, we want to do it as neat as possible. So like if it's the account title, then we just neatly write the line above it. Sometimes an entire entry is incorrect, so we would cross the entry out, and then we go ahead and put the new entry in. It says sometimes several correct entries are recorded after entries made. The next blank lines are several entries later. Draw neat lines through them all incorrect parts. Record the correct item lines and the same incorrect items directly above the canceled parts. So what can we take from this when we're doing journal entries or a permanent record? These journals are permanent records. So if there's an error, they wanted us to write, strike one out by putting lines through it, putting the correct entry, or putting lines through it and putting the correct title there. It doesn't really affect us as long as you know you put lines through it and put the correct title. If there's just a mistake, you'll be fine. That is all that chapter section is. Thanks.